Stark Reality Garage. Hey, I've got the Jeep still in here, and I've got kind of a big project that I've got to do on it. This Jeep has about 115,000 miles on it now, and the clutch has finally started to slip. When you're four-wheeling this thing, you have to play the clutch with the four-cylinder, and it's finally slipping. So it's time to replace the clutch. So I ordered up a clutch kit, and I decided at the same time, now's the chance to do one other upgrade, which is an inertia ring from Tri-County Gear. So I ordered up this inertia ring. It's kind of expensive, but this adds an additional 8 pounds to your flywheel, and that allows the engine to carry a little more energy and continue to run even when it's at low RPMs. So I picked this up. This came in, and I also bought a new flywheel. They're pretty inexpensive, 50 bucks. So I figured I'd get a brand new flywheel, brand new clutch, and the inertia ring, and we'll get them swapped out. So obviously this is a bit of a project. You got a lot of work to do to get this done. So I'm not gonna get it all done today. So it's gonna be done over a little bit of time, and I'll take you along and hopefully figure out how this thing works. It's mostly just a lot of work to get to it. So hopefully things go smooth, and we'll get this ring put in and see how it performs. Everybody raves about it online. They've been making these things for a very long time, and so we'll see how it goes.
All right, so the first thing you got to do is remove your rear axle shaft, which is easy enough. It's just 8mm bolts on either end. My caps flopped right off, and I had to clean them up. So be careful. You know, they'll just fall right off if you're not careful. Tape this up, set it aside, and we'll get back to that. It'll be the last thing we put back on. Okay, so now that you have the drive shaft out, you need to prop up the transmission. So it's up there pretty high, and that'll allow you to now start removing the skid plate. So you got to remove the 3 bolts that are holding your transmission mounts on, and then once you do that, you can then get a jack underneath there and remove all the bolts on both sides and drop that down out of the way. All right, now you can get those 6 bolts out, drop your skid plate down, get that down out of the way. And you definitely need a jack, especially with mine. It's armored, nice heavy one. Those are those transmission mounts. We'll pull those off in a minute. That'll make taking it out easier. And now you can remove the front drive shaft. You're going to have to remove that as well. It's a lot easier when the skid plate's out of the way.
All right, so I'm working on pulling the transmission so I can get to the clutch. And those are all the bolts you got to pull out of the transmission bell housing to get in. The lucky thing is they are almost 18, all of them are 18mm, and then these 2 on the sides, I think they were 1/2 inch. Don't quote me on that. I think they were halves. So I soaked these a bunch and found I could get some of them with the air gun, but a bunch of them I just used. I used a bunch of extensions and then got a wrench on them and yanked on them and popped them, and then I was able to get them off. So, but yeah, a bunch of different stuff. You got to pull all the disconnects and all that other kind of good stuff. There's some great videos. I'll put some links in there already. I'm using my motorcycle jack to hold it up at the moment. It sets in there really nice where the transmission mount goes. So nice and flat right there. So just about ready to pull this thing out. The only thing I'm not sure about is my starter motor. I can't quite get that out past my exhaust, which was put in after the starter motor. So I got, hopefully this will come out. It's loose, so hopefully I can get it out. So I'll pull this back and we'll get it out, and you know, that'll be the first big step. Took a lot of soaking with the PB Blaster because they didn't want to really move it first, but for a couple days they came right out. So we'll see you next after I get everything pulled apart. So I got the clutch out, and this thing is toast. So you can see that's just, it basically broke apart. So you're missing, is that a third, almost a half of the material on this side, and it is virtually gone on the other side. So I'm pretty sure this is the original clutch in the Jeep. There's like nothing left of this thing. So you know, I'm at 115,000 miles or whatever. This is pretty chewed up because this is the side that was missing the pieces. The flywheel underneath actually is not in too bad a shape, all things considered. It's not too bad, but I'm going to replace it anyways since I'm in here. So the lift worked pretty good. It's nice and balanced, sits right on the mount. It's able to drop it down, slide it back. So that's working out pretty good. So next thing, I'll get the clutch or the plate removed. Those are 19 millimeters, and it was 1/2 inch on the cover on the clutch. All right, so now that I've got everything removed, there's the clutch or the flywheel out. I've got my new flywheel here, and this is the inertia ring. This is from Tri-County Gear. They got some basic instructions, but basically what you do is, this is the back of the flywheel. These are the spots where the clutch cover screws into on the other side. You're going to drill out those holes because you're going to put this in from the back side. So this is going to slide in. You're going to drill those holes out, and then this is going to slip through, and you're going to attach the flywheel cover or the clutch cover to these bolts. So they send you a drill bit to drill these out with, and then we should be able to put that on, test fit it, make sure it's not touching anything. I know in the past when I talked with them, they said there was sometimes where they would touch in the past. There's some old articles, but these ones shouldn't touch at all. So we'll drill these out and get that mounted. All right, so I'm up here underneath. A couple things to show you. One is I use just a couple of nuts to tighten down the weight onto the back of it so that I could get it nice and snug to get this thing mounted. Next thing, I used a screwdriver and one of the bolts for the transmission, and that gave me enough torque to be able to put these down in. These go to 50 foot-pounds and then another 60 degrees. I had a dickens of a time trying to get to 60 degrees, but I got these as tight as I can get them. So now I'll take these off. This one, I've just got to put a couple of them on. And then I can put the clutch on and the clutch cover, which now ties down to the back of these. I also spun this around a couple times, make sure nothing touched, and nothing touches at all. So we're pretty good. So I'll get this thing all cleaned up. Oh, another thing to remember, if you haven't done this before, clutches have a specific, or the flywheel has a specific pattern. So make sure you get the pattern right. First time I thought I had it, I didn't. I couldn't get the bolts to go in. It was driving me nuts. It's hard to see down here. So I'll just know that it is a specific pattern. So I'll get this thing cleaned up and put the clutch in, and then it's time to start sealing it back up. All right, so now I've got the clutch installed on the flywheel, and everything's all torqued down and all good there. And I have I don't have lights for it, but up inside the bell housing I have the new slave cylinder. I know that slave cylinder can be a real bugger, so my original wasn't leaking, but time for a new one. So next I gotta pull the little alignment tool, grease up that spindle, push it all back together again, and start sealing it up. So I'm really excited about this flywheel change. It's something I've always wanted, and now finally got the chance. So it'll be fun to see how it goes. But now it's just time to buckle it back up, and then we'll see how she drives. All right, so I got the transmission connected back up again. You know, the X5, the two bolts at the very top are the same on both sides, and they're all 18s, so that makes it easy. But these two bolts here and here are different lengths on this side and the other side, so make sure you keep track of them. You know, put them in a board, keep them sorted out. The ones at the bottom are the same, but those ones are a little different. So now, and keep in mind too, one of the things to remember is you can drop this transmission down while it's hooked up a few inches to be able to get to everything on top. To this where the stick shift comes in, so you can loosen that up. So I'll say the lift has worked out terrific. So right now I'm just buttoning it back up, putting all the connections back together again, and fill it back up with fluid, and I guess we'll be ready to go. So those are my tidbits at the moment for putting it all back together again. Okay, so after getting it all
put back together again, we went on a trip out to West Virginia to do some wheeling, and the inertia ring made a huge difference. You're able to go so much slower, even with the 410 gears, much slower, and be able to go down to 750 RPMs under some torque, and she still keeps going. So it was terrific, and it performed great. Having a new clutch is also really nice. Good example in the Jeep is if you put it in
big drop. Here comes a big drop.
The idle will just drive the Jeep all by itself. It did not do that before. So it is much more controllable at those low RPMs than it was in the past. And we had a great trip. It was a little foggy this one morning when we were up in the rocks and trees, but it was a great morning and a great trip out to West Virginia. Can't say enough about the inertia ring. It was a great addition in combination with some lower gearing, which will be coming up soon. It's going to be unstoppable. So really happy with that addition.
Driver.